I didn't anything.
You didn't go to school?
No, I started holidays.
Ah, so they are today. I believe that tomorrow.
No, today.
Ah, okay. Very good. So, Miriam, what do you do?
I went to center and
To the center. Good. Why do you go to the center?
because I should no. I had but to buy
Very good.
things.
All right. Okay. Things like groceries or I don't know.
Gifts.
Ah, okay. So, are you going to a birthday?
And yeah, but how do you say cumpleaños tardado?
Delayed birthday. Delayed birthday.
Delayed birthday.
Ah, okay. Good. Miriam. Whose delayed birthday is it?
My boyfriend.
Ah, okay. Excellent, Miriam. Good. So you're going to give him a present. And Miriam, what did you buy for him?
It's the
A
table, the
perfume.
five.
Is a what?
It's the gifts is the box, the five. Ay, how do you say sentidos?
Five senses.
Five senses.
Ah, okay. It's a box for five senses. Okay.
Yeah.
What are they meaning? Are they soap? Some jabones? Are they perfumes? Are they stamps? I don't know.
Yeah, perfume and the photo and clothes and the candies.
Ah, okay. Excellent. How old is he now?
21,
21. Very young. Very good.
20,
Excellent.
22.
22. I mean, and when was his birthday?
In February.
Oh, that is a very delayed birthday. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Miriam, very good. Okay, so you went to the center to buy something for something special for your boyfriend, and then Miriam, what do you do?
Nothing.
You went home.
Yeah.
Very good,
I,
Miriam. What did you eat for lunch, Miriam?
the steak and
Steak.
steak spaghetti.
All right, very good, excellent, Miriam, excellent.
Yes.
What time did you wake up today?
I carefully because my
Early? Why early?
my how do you say alarma o mi reloj?
My alarm clock.
Pero natural, así como
My inner alarm clock.
my inner alarm clock, the early.
Yes. Okay, Miriam. That's too bad, Miriam. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent, Miriam. Okay, Miriam. And Miriam, where are you going to celebrate your boyfriend's birthday? His house, your house? Um, I don't know.
No celebrate, but
In a cinema.
no, how do you say? Solo le voy a entregar su regalo.
I am going to give him
I am
his
going to give
give
him
him his present. I am going
his,
to give him his
his present.
or with a voice over, I am going to hand in his present.
Hand him his present. Yeah.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, Miriam, so Miriam, when are you planning to see your boyfriend?
Nothing. It's rare the
I don't know.
planning.
No. When are you going to see your boyfriend?
Oh, in Saturday.
On Saturday.
On Saturday.
Okay, Saturday in the morning, Saturday afternoon.
Maybe afternoon, because this on Saturday he's planning with friends, and yeah.
So he's going out with his friends, okay? Very good,
Mhm.
Miriam. Okay, okay, Miriam. Miriam, and why don't you invite him to the cinema?
I don't know.
Okay. I don't know, maybe you can tell him, why don't we go to the cinema? I pay, okay?
No, I don't have money today.
Okay. Okay, yeah, very good. Okay. So let's see, okay? Let me share my screen, okay? And we are going to start with practice for TOEFL listening, okay? So look at this, okay? Okay. Okay, this is the board. The link is the same as yesterday. Okay.
Ay,
So let's first read the question. It says, what is the lecture mainly about? It says how notenoids became the dominant type of fish in the Southern Ocean. How various proteins can function in notenoids. An example that contradicts the theory, okay, of adaptive radiation. Changes in ocean habitats caused by continental drift. Question number 2, please.
yeah. Why did the antifreeze protein originally give on now special advantages to the earliest not the I
Noto,
could
Nototinoids.
I can
Nototinoids.
not to deny
Very good.
many other types of
Types. Types.
types types of fish had the same protein.
Good.
The nautinoids were not living in sub-freezing temperatures.
Good.
The effect of the antifreeze protein was
Neutralize.
neutralized by other proteins.
Good.
The antifreeze proteins functioned only in the smallest nautinoids.
Nototinoids. Pues mira, aquí in the first set of questions, mira, any, for example, here, new words known. Okay.
Mm,
Maybe mira, this one, mira, this one. What is mira, continental drift?
I
What is
don't
mira?
know.
Damian, please write that on one note, please.
Okay. Continental drift.
Okay. También dicen cambios continentales. Cambios continentales. And obviously, miran, nototinoids, miran, is a kind of fish. Also, please, you write there on one note, please.
Así, eso no sé qué significa. No,
Nototinoids is
no
a kind
sé,
of fish.
no sé ni hoy. ¿Cómo?
Nototinoids is a kind of fish.
Ay, ¿qué es? ¿Cómo? Kind of fish.
Huh? It's a
¿Qué
kind of fish.
¿Cómo se escribe?
Wait a minute. So here, okay. Okay. A kind of fish, miren, un tipo de pez.
Ah, ok.
¿Mm? El nombre técnico de sí es igual que en español o en inglés, se llaman nototenoides. No totenoides. La traducción literal es no totenoides. Y
Qué
es
raro.
un tipo de pez, ¿no? Very good. Okay. So here, and maybe new words. Here, what is mean sub-freezing? Sub-freezing.
I don't know.
Okay. De bajo congelamiento o subcongelación. Subcongelación. Y de
Okay.
temperaturas de subcongelación. Ujú. Este, mira, antifreeze. Mira, ¿qué es el antifreeze? Antifreeze.
An- Anticongelamiento.
Very good. Anticongelamiento. Very good. Exactly. Very good. Okay. Okay, will you please repeat number three? What characteristic?
What characteristic of nothing ice helps them
Sur survive. Very good.
survive in some freezing temperatures?
Good.
They maintain an usually high body temperature,
Good.
a special tissue in their eyes
Mhm.
in bowels
Enables
enable
them.
them to see through ice.
Good.
Special proteins make the raw circulate to fast freeze,
Okay.
and ice crystals in their bodies are prevent from growing large enough to harm them.
To harm them. Very good. Here, mira, what is mira, tissue?
I don't know.
Tissue, mira. The right, mira, on one note, please, tissue.
Yeah,
Tejido, mira, tejido. Okay. Tejido muscular, por ejemplo. Okay. ¿Cuál es, mira, enables, enables,
I don't know.
enable, permite, okay. Ujú. Hay que ser, digo, mira, ice crystal in their bodies are prevented, todo junto, mira, are prevented from,
Prevenir, están previniendo para
casi,
o
casi,
prevenir.
mira, are prevented from, em, son evitados de, o se evita que,
Okay.
very good. Este,
Teacher,
mira, yes,
can I go to the restroom?
yes, go,
The-
yes, 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 go, yes, yes, of course.
I'm back. Thanks, teacher.
Okay, so here, mira, what is, mira, harm?
I
Harm.
don't.
Harm, the right, that harm. Dañar. Dañarlos.
Okay.
Causar daño. Very good. Here, my number four is, I will read. Why does the professor mention that coral reefs, support more than 4,000 species of fish? To find out what the students know about tropical fish, to contrast two types of ocean environments, to imply that there may be species in the Southern Ocean that have not been discovered yet, to imply that there may be fossil evidence of coral reefs in the Southern Ocean. ¿Cuál denomina coral reef, Miriam? Coral reefs.
Arrecifes de coral.
Very good. Arrecife de coral. Very good. Okay. Okay. Question number five, Miriam. Can you please read number five?
Yeah. According to the professor, which factor led to the rapid distribution of nitrogen ice throughout the Southern Ocean?
Good.
A genetic mutation occurred in the DNA of the
DNA.
DNA of the earliest nogenite.
Good.
There was an increase in competition for food in temperate waters.
Good.
Antarctica broke off and drifted away from the South American continent. The waters around Antarctica temporarily warmed up.
Okay. Hey, Miriam, what is Miriam let? Let. Let.
No.
Let es el pasado, Miriam. El presente es lit.
Let. Let.
Lit, ok. El presente es lit, ok. Lit. El pasado let es lit, conducir, guiar. Ok. El pasado left, que condujo, que guió. Ok.
What is drift? Drift away.
Ah, that woman is also a phrasal verb. A phrasal verb, drift away. También es alejarse. Todo junto, drift away from. Drift away from. Alejarse de.
Okay.
Wait a minute,
And
listen.
there,
Throughout. Throughout.
I don't know.
Throughout. A través de. Throughout. A través del Océano del Sur.
What is warmed up?
Ah, sí, warm es a phrasal verb. Calentar. Calentar.
Okay.
Ujú. Muy bien. Muy bien, the next, could you please read number six?
According to the professor, what happened to Nogenites that migrate to different areas of the Southern Ocean
Southern Ocean, very good.
and they evolved into a wide variety of Nogenites yeah,
Species. Species.
species
Good.
species. They develop they develop the ability to tolerate a wide range of temperatures.
Good.
Some of them becomes extinct because of the new
Predators.
predators.
Good.
Some of them develop additional antifreeze proteins.
Very good. Okay. Okay, man. So let's listen, okay? Okay. And don't write anything, okay? Or yes, listen and make notes, okay? We will listen this twice, okay? Very good. So let's listen, okay? Very good.
Listen to part of a lecture in a biology class. So, continuing our discussions of environmental adaptation, today I want to focus on a species of fish called the notothenioids. Bit of a mouthful, I know. Scientists have documented over 90 species of notothenioids in both deep and shallow waters. You're getting creeped out by the PowerPoint slide, don't worry. They really only live around Antarctica. Most of them are pretty small. However, a few species can weigh up to 150 kilograms. These fish can be identified by their huge eyes, insulated with a layer of thick, transparent protective tissue. This kind of tissue protects the fluid in their eyeballs from freezing in the incredibly cold seawater. Remember, salt water has a lower freezing point than fresh water, so moisture in an animal's tissue would be particularly vulnerable to freezing and causing cell death. So while the cold ocean of Antarctica could freeze and kill most fish, the notothenioids end up thriving in these icy waters. They actually make up nearly 95% of all fish species in the Southern Ocean around that cold continent. That kind of thing is a stark contrast to tropical oceans where the biodiversity is extremely high. When you think of a tropical reef, for instance, you probably imagine a plethora of different types of fish and sea creatures living together and preying on each other. The average coral reef supports over 4,000 types of fish, sponges, crustaceans, and others. To have one species of fish in an entire section of the ocean, pretty impressive. Yes, Amy?
How or when did the notothenioids end up taking over the Southern Ocean?
Well, I'm glad you asked. That was actually my next point of interest. So, about 30 million years ago, the water in that area was a lot warmer than it is today. Way back then, South America and Antarctica were actually connected. The air from around the equator could travel south to heat up the chilly Antarctic waters. The warm tropical waters could also flow southwards, bringing the rich biodiversity along with it. Because Antarctica's waters were relatively warm back then, it could support a lot of different types of animals. We confirmed this by looking at the fossil record, even finding out that 90 or so of the notothenioids even existed back then. Historians think that somewhere between 5 and 14 million years ago, two huge changes occurred. First of all, a chance mutation allowed the notothenioids to develop a special protein that now flows through their body. This special protein is actually a type of antifreeze. It works by bonding to an ice crystal that formed inside their flesh, preventing it from growing any larger. So, at the time, the waters they swam in were still decently warm, and the protein didn't do much for their overall survival rates. Still, somewhere around this time period, there are records of a colossal shift that moved around the Earth's tectonic plates. This movement is now known as continental drift. It pushed Antarctica away from South America and down toward the chilly southern end of the Earth. This caused a current to swirl up and form, encircling the cooling continent with a rush of cold water. This cold water prevented warmer tides from intermingling. It eventually dropped to the sub-zero icy landscape we know today. As you may have guessed, the tropical fish didn't do so well in the sudden drop of environmental temperatures, and many species went extinct. Luckily for the notothenioids, they had a handy-dandy gene mutation that let them produce this antifreeze protein. Now the only type of fish that could survive the cold waters, it had virtually no competition for food or resources and went wild. So, as its population increased dramatically, they migrated into different parts of oceans. Over time, they developed different physical adaptations to survive in their particular environment. Eventually, they split off into subspecies, mutated a bit more, had a bit of geologic morphology going on. Very cool stuff. We call this kind of physical differentiation process of adaptive radiation. It really only happens when a species rapidly changes and ends up with quite a few new species to fill empty niches that either didn't exist before or weren't available. So now we have about 90 species of notothenioids kicking it in the Southern Ocean.
Okay, I repeat one more time, okay? There it goes, okay?
So, continuing our discussions of environmental adaptation, today I want to focus on a species of fish called the notothenioids. Bit of a mouthful, I know. Scientists have documented over 90 species of notothenioids in both deep and shallow waters. You're getting creeped out by the PowerPoint slide, don't worry. They really only live around Antarctica. Most of them are pretty small. However, a few species can weigh up to 150 kilograms. These fish can be identified by their huge eyes, insulated with a layer of thick, transparent protective tissue. This kind of tissue protects the fluid in their eyeballs from freezing in the incredibly cold seawater. Remember, salt water has a lower freezing point than fresh water, so moisture in an animal's tissue would be particularly vulnerable to freezing and causing cell death. So while the cold ocean of Antarctica could freeze and kill most fish, the notothenioids end up thriving in these icy waters. They actually make up nearly 95% of all fish species in the Southern Ocean around that cold continent. That kind of thing is a stark contrast to tropical oceans where the biodiversity is extremely high. When you think of a tropical reef, for instance, you probably imagine a plethora of different types of fish and sea creatures living together and preying on each other. The average coral reef supports over 4,000 types of fish, sponges, crustaceans, and others. To have one species of fish in an entire section of the ocean, pretty impressive. Yes, Amy?
How or when did the notothenioids end up taking over the Southern Ocean?
Well, I'm glad you asked. That was actually my next point of interest. So, about 30 million years ago, the water in that area was a lot warmer than it is today. Way back then, South America and Antarctica were actually connected. The air from around the equator could travel south to heat up the chilly Antarctic waters. The warm tropical waters could also flow southwards, bringing the rich biodiversity along with it. Because Antarctica's waters were relatively warm back then, it could support a lot of different types of animals. We confirmed this by looking at the fossil record, even finding out that 90 or so of the notothenioids even existed back then. Historians think that somewhere between 5 and 14 million years ago, two huge changes occurred. First of all, a chance mutation allowed the notothenioids to develop a special protein that now flows through their body. This special protein is actually a type of antifreeze. It works by bonding to an ice crystal that formed inside their flesh, preventing it from growing any larger. So, at the time, the waters they swam in were still decently warm, and the protein didn't do much for their overall survival rates. Still, somewhere around this time period, there are records of a colossal shift that moved around the Earth's tectonic plates. This movement is now known as continental drift. It pushed Antarctica away from South America and down toward the chilly southern end of the Earth. This caused a current to swirl up and form, encircling the cooling continent with a rush of cold water. This cold water prevented warmer tides from intermingling. It eventually dropped to the sub-zero icy landscape we know today. As you may have guessed, the tropical fish didn't do so well in the sudden drop of environmental temperatures, and many species went extinct. Luckily for the notothenioids, they had a handy-dandy gene mutation that let them produce this antifreeze protein. Now the only type of fish that could survive the cold waters, it had virtually no competition for food or resources and went wild. So, as its population increased dramatically, they migrated into different parts of oceans. Over time, they developed different physical adaptations to survive in their particular environment. Eventually, they split off into subspecies, mutated a bit more, had a bit of geologic morphology going on. Very cool stuff. We call this kind of physical differentiation process of adaptive radiation. It really only happens when a species rapidly changes and ends up with quite a few new species to fill empty niches that either didn't exist before or weren't available. So now we have about 90 species of notothenioids kicking it in the Southern Ocean.
Okay, Miriam. You get it, Miriam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Or
Okay.
do you want to listen one more time?
No. Vamos a
Okay.
ver.
Very good.
Okay. What is the lecture mainly about? Habla sobre
Okay, what is the lecture mainly about? Okay.
how notodonts become the dominant type of fish in the South Ocean. No por lo que entendí.
Very good. Yes. Good. Exactly. Good, Miriam. Good. Yes. Number one is correct. Okay.
Why did antifreeze protein originally give no special advantage to the earliest Latinoists? Mm, por lo que entendí, decía que ellos no vivían a temperaturas bajas.
Okay, you answer and then we check, okay, Miriam? Okay, you answer and then we will check, okay?
Siento que es este. Yep or no?
You answer and then we check, okay? Continue with number 3, please.
Okay.
Very good, very good.
What the characteristics of Naughty Noise? Siento que es esta. No. Yeah,
Okay, so let's check, okay? Okay, let's see. For example, question 1, as I said previously, it's correct, okay? Okay, question 1 is good, okay? Question 2, okay? This is not correct. Question 3, okay? Question 3 is also not correct, okay? Question 4, very good. Question 4, not good. And then question 5, okay, not good, okay. And question 6, okay, not good, okay. So it's only question 1, okay. So listen one more time, okay, and this time you listen carefully, okay. Very good. Okay, there it goes, okay.
So, continuing our discussions of environmental adaptation, today I want to focus on a species of fish called the notothenioids. Bit of a mouthful, I know. Scientists have documented over 90 species of notothenioids in both deep and shallow waters. You're getting creeped out by the PowerPoint slide, don't worry. They really only live around Antarctica. Most of them are pretty small. However, a few species can weigh up to 150 kilograms. These fish can be identified by their huge eyes, insulated with a layer of thick, transparent protective tissue. This kind of tissue protects the fluid in their eyeballs from freezing in the incredibly cold seawater. Remember, salt water has a lower freezing point than fresh water, so moisture in an animal's tissue would be particularly vulnerable to freezing and causing cell death. So while the cold ocean of Antarctica could freeze and kill most fish, the notothenioids end up thriving in these icy waters. They actually make up nearly 95% of all fish species in the Southern Ocean around that cold continent. That kind of thing is a stark contrast to tropical oceans, where the biodiversity is extremely high. When you think of a tropical reef, for instance, you probably imagine a plethora of different types of fish and sea creatures living together and preying on each other. The average coral reef supports over 4,000 types of fish, sponges, crustaceans, and others. To have one species of fish in an entire section of the ocean? Pretty impressive. Yes, Amy?
How or when did the notothenioids end up taking over the Southern Ocean?
Well, I'm glad you asked. That was actually my next point of interest. So, about 30 million years ago, the water in that area was a lot warmer than it is today. Way back then, South America and Antarctica were actually connected. The air from around the equator could travel south to heat up the chilly Antarctic waters. The warm tropical waters could also flow southwards, bringing the rich biodiversity along with it. Because Antarctica's waters were relatively warm back then, it could support a lot of different types of animals. We confirmed this by looking at the fossil record, even finding out that 90 or so of the notothenioids even existed back then. Historians think that somewhere between 5 and 14 million years ago, two huge changes occurred. First of all, a chance mutation allowed the notothenioids to develop a special protein that now flows through their body. This special protein is actually a type of antifreeze. It works by bonding to an ice crystal that formed inside their flesh, preventing it from growing any larger. So, at the time, the waters they swam in were still decently warm, and the protein didn't do much for their overall survival rates. Still, somewhere around this time period, there are records of a colossal shift that moved around the Earth's tectonic plates. This movement is now known as continental drift. It pushed Antarctica away from South America and down toward the chilly southern end of the Earth. This caused a current to swirl up and form, encircling the cooling continent with a rush of cold water. This cold water prevented warmer tides from intermingling. It eventually dropped to the sub-zero icy landscape we know today. As you may have guessed, the tropical fish didn't do so well in the sudden drop of environmental temperatures, and many species went extinct. Luckily for the notothenioids, they had a handy-dandy gene mutation that let them produce this antifreeze protein. Now the only type of fish that could survive the cold waters, it had virtually no competition for food or resources and went wild. So, as its population increased dramatically, they migrated into different parts of oceans. Over time, they developed different physical adaptations to survive in their particular environment. Eventually, they split off into subspecies, mutated a bit more, had a bit of geologic morphology going on. Very cool stuff. We call this kind of physical differentiation process of adaptive radiation. It really only happens when a species rapidly changes and ends up with quite a few new species to fill empty niches that either didn't exist before or weren't available. So now we have about 90 species of notothenioids kicking it in the Southern Ocean.
Okay, man. So very good. Listen, I'm going to share with you, meaning a file. Okay, is a transcript of the listening of the audio. Okay, there. If you click on the file, okay, you will be able to see this. Okay, look at this. Very good. Okay, this is what the professor spoke about. Okay, so now with the reading, okay, with the reading, now we're going to do a reading activity. Answer the questions. Okay. Very good.
Aquí según yo.
Son como láseres, ¿no? ¿Los dos son iguales? ¿Nada más tiene esos colores? No, me morí.
Mm,
¿Cómo ves? Son bien chidas. A ver, están bien chidas. ¿Estaban? ¿Eh? ¿Estaban? En 2500 cada uno. ¿En cuánto cuestan las docenas? Y te compramos 4. Ah, y 300. ¿Cada una? Sí. Ya con estas y las barras, no, madre. Ya no. Sí. Mira así. Y los agarren. ¿Y los dos compraron juntos cada quien? Él iba por otras que le habían gustado. Ah. No, que estas de están chidas.
creo que ya.
Okay, very good. So let's see. Okay. So it says, okay, I will read the question and you tell me the correct answer. Okay. So it says, why did the antifreeze protein originally give no special advantage to the earliest nanotenoids?
Just the nationalists were not living to rising temperatures.
Very good. Okay. Number 3, what characteristic of nanotenoids helps them survive in freezing temperatures?
A special tissue in their eyes enables them to see through ice.
Through ice. Very good. Okay. Good, good, good. Number 4, it says, why does the professor mention that coral reefs support more than 4,000 species of fish?
Y según yo es to contrast to types of ocean environments.
Very good. Okay. Question number 5, according to the professor, which factor led to the rapid distribution of nanotenoids throughout the Southern Ocean?
There was an increasing competition for food in temperate waters.
Or exactly. Very good. Exactly. Very good, 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 good. And the last one. According to the professor, what happened to the nanotenoids that migrated to different areas of the Southern Ocean?
Some of them became extinct because of new predators.
Predators. Very good. Okay, so this time, okay, let's read, okay? For example, I will start to read. So it's a professor. So continuing with our discussions of environmental adaptation, today I want to focus on a species of fish called the nanotenoids. A bit of a mouthful, I know. Miren. ¿Qué será miren? A bit of a mouthful.
I don't know.
Okay. Miren, please write there on OneNote, please. A bit of a mouthful. A bit of a mouthful. Un poco difícil de pronunciar. A bit of a mouthful. Un poco difícil de pronunciar.
Okay.
Okay, can you please read the next? Scientists have
Documented over 90 species
species
of
species of
species of nationals in both deep and shallow waters. If you're getting creeped out by the PowerPoint style, don't worry, they really only live around Antarctica. Most of them are pretty small, however, a few species can weigh up to 150 kilograms, about 330 point
point 69
69 livers.
pounds. Okay, pounds. I mean, where's me anyone? Deep and shallow waters. Deep and shallow waters.
I don't know.
Deep and shallow waters, okay, es aguas profundas y aguas bajas. Ok, aguas profundas y aguas bajas. Getting creep out. Getting creeped out. Okay. Pues también, what is getting creeped out?
I don't know.
Bien. Espanta, todo junto, ¿eh? Espantándose, asustándose. Okay. Getting creeped out. Okay. As I already, these fish can be identified by their huge eyes, insulated with a layer of thick, transparent, protective tissue. This kind of tissue protects the fluid in their eyeballs from freezing in incredibly cold salt water. Remember, salt water has a lower freezing point than fresh water, so moisture in animals' tissue will be particularly vulnerable to freezing and causing cell death. What is being a layer of thick, transparent protective tissue. Okay, and
I don't know.
moisture. Okay. Es bien, a layer of thick, transparent protective tissue es una capa gruesa, transparente, una capa gruesa, transparente de tejido protector. Mira, eyeballs. ¿Qué se miran eyeballs?
I don't know.
Mira, eyeballs es el ojo, el ojo, ok. Eyeballs, en los ojos, ok. Dime, mira, moisture,
I don't know.
mira, humedad, moisture, humedad. Okay, mira, you read so why the cold?
So, why the cold ocean of Antarctica cold freeze and kill most fish? The Neptunites end up thriving in this ice water. And they make up nearly 95% of all fish species in the Southern Ocean around that cold continent. That kind of kinds is a stark contrast to tropical oceans, where their biodiversity is extremely high. When you think of a tropical reef, for instance, you're probably imagine a plethora of different
Types.
of types of fish and sea creatures living together and preying on each other. The average coral reef supports over 4,000 types of fish, sponges, crustaceans, and others. To have one species of fish in an entire section of oceans, pretty impressive, yes, Amy?
Very good. So, mira, what do you mean end up? End up.
I don't know, es final.
Okay. End up es termina o terminan.
Okay.
Thriving, mira, what is thriving?
I don't
Thriving.
know.
Sobreviviendo. Sobreviviendo. Okay. Digo, mira, a stark contrast. A stark
No.
contrast. Es un contraste principal, un contraste importante
Okay.
o un contraste relevante. Okay. Plethora. Plethora. You probably imagine a plethora of different types of fish. Plethora, miren. Plethora, una combinación. Una combinación. Ok. Y esto, mira, praying. Praying, mira, praying. Praying, mira. Praying es siendo presa. Siendo presa. O ser presa de.
Okay.
Very good. Very good. So I will raise this. Amy, when did the Notinoids end up taking over the Southern Ocean? Professor, I'm glad you asked. That was actually my next point of interest. So about 30 million years ago, the water in that area was a lot warmer than it is today. Way back then, South America and Antarctica were actually connected. The air from around the equator could travel south to heat up the chilly Antarctic waters. The warm tropical waters could also flow southwards, bringing the rich biodiversity along with it. Hey, mira, what do you mean chilly? Chilly.
Chile. I don't know.
Te recomendé chilly, ¿ok? Congelante o muy frío. Ujú.
Y Chile con Y latina.
Ah, this one.
Yeah.
Ah, ese es el chile que comemos. El chile que comemos, ¿ok? Un chile verde, un chile rojo. Ok,
Ah,
ok. Good. Dígame, southward, mira. Ese, ¿qué será? Southwards.
I don't know.
Southwards, ok. Mira, también miran ese flow, ok. Ok. Flow es que fluye, fluir, flow, ok. Southwards hacia el sur. Southwards hacia el sur. Okay. Again, could you repeat it? Because Antarctica's
Because Antarctica's waters were relatively
good.
warm back then, it could support a lot of different types of animals.
Good.
We confirmed this by looking at the fossil record, even finding out that 90 or so of the Notinoids even exist back then.
Very good. Okay. Here, historians think that somewhere between 5 and 14 million years ago, two huge changes occurred. First of all, a change mutation allowed the neurotenoids to develop a special protein that now flows through their body. This special protein is actually a type of antifreeze. It works by bonding to an ice crystal that forms inside their flesh, preventing it from growing any larger. Very good. Coming the next song at the time.
So at the time the waters they swam in were still decently warm, and the protein didn't do much for their overall survival rates. Still, somewhere around this time, there are records of the colossal shift that moved around the Earth's tectonic plates.
Good.
This movement is now known as continental drift.
Okay.
It pushed Antarctica away from South America and down toward the chilly southern end of the Earth. This caused a
This
current
cause
to, what is the pronunciation? Swirl
slurred up, slur up.
straight up and from encircling the cooling continent with a rush of cold water. This cold water prevents warmer tides from intermingling. It eventually dropped to the sub-zero ice landscape we know today.
Exactly, very good. So here, okay, there I mark some words, okay. For example, what is media and toward, toward.
Towards, I don't know.
Okay, mira, toward, Asia, ir hacia, okay, Asia.
Yo pensé que Asia.
I don't know, de ir hacia un lugar, okay. Very good. This one, mira, slur up. Slurp, slurp. También mira, es remolino, okay, remolino hacia arriba, un remolino que sube. Slurp, un remolino que sube.
Ajá.
Intermingle, intermingle, intermingle. También es entremezclar,
Mm,
intermingle, entremezclar.
okay.
Bueno, mira, landscape,
I don't know.
paisaje, paisaje.
Hay muchas palabras que significan paisaje.
Exactly. But this one, I mean, is the most common, okay? Landscape is very, very common, okay? Okay, man, I would, as you may have guessed, the tropical fish didn't do so well in the sudden drop of environmental temperatures, and many species were extinct. Luckily for the northenoids, they had a handy dandy gene mutation that let them produce this antifreeze protein. Now, the only type of fish that could survive the cold waters, it had virtually no competition for food or resources and went wild. Okay. Well, mira, a handy dandy gene mutation. A handy dandy all together, mira, handy dandy,
Handy dandy.
handy dandy, okay.
Suena como dando y dando.
Gene. Okay,
Handy
okay. Todo junto, miren, todo junto, ¿ok? A Handy Dandy Gene Mutation es una mutación del gen práctico, una mutación del gen práctico Dandy. Dandy es un tipo de gen, es una categoría de gen. Ok, very good. Okay, miren, could you please read the next? So, as its population,
So, as its population increased dramatically, they migrate into different parts of oceans. Over time, they develop into different physical adaptations to survive in their particular environment. Eventually, they split off into species, mutate a bit more, had a bit of geologic
mo- uh, uh, morphology,
morphology going on, very cool stuff. We call this kind of physical differentiation a process of adaptive gradation. It really only happens when a species rapidly changes and ends up with quite a few new species to fill empty niche that either didn't exist before or weren't what is pronunciation
available.
available.
Very
So
well.
now we have about 90 species of Notinoids kicking, yeah, no, kick, kick,
Kicking
kick
it, kicking it.
in the Southern Ocean.
Very good. What do you mean split off? Split off.
I don't know.
Split off. It's a phrasal verb. También es separarse, dividirse. Very good.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see here. Okay. Look at this. Wait a minute. Okay. Let's find an image of this fish. Okay. Wait a minute. Very good. I mean, look. This is an example of this fish. Okay. I didn't know this fish before, but it's this one. Okay. This is median not denoid.
Ay, está feo. It's ugly.
So it says here the antifreeze fish, okay, from Antarctica. This one, okay. Yes, it's not very pretty, okay. A very pretty fish, okay.
No.
Very good, Miriam. Very good, okay. Okay, very good, Miriam. Okay. Okay, Mira, so here, Mira, I'm going to share this link with you. Okay, it's a grab challenge. Okay, it's a grab challenge that I found on internet for intermediate for advanced students. Okay, look at this. Okay, so I'm going to share with you. Okay, Mira, so here it says grammar challenge advanced. Okay, it says answer as many grammar questions as you can correctly in 150 seconds. The scores will be reset every 2 weeks. And here we have the leaderboard, okay? So we have a person called Injun, and she's from Belgium, and the score was 54.5, okay? Mexico, look at this, Lorena, I get called Lorena, okay? Her score was 47 points, okay? Okay, so here it says, okay? Let's start, okay? So here I'm going to write your name, okay? So it's going to be Miriam, okay? Country is going to be from Mexico, okay? So here it is, okay? And go, okay? So mira, here it says, okay? A Malawi woman who, with HIV 5 years ago, a baby now. Who
Who
is another
is
thing? A Malawi woman who,
who faced? No. Who is facing specs? Number 8.
who is in specs, okay? Wait a minute, 5 years ago, okay? Hace 5 años,
Ah, entonces sería letter E, faced and will be expressed.
okay?
No.
No, okay. But how do you change the question? How? Okay, look at this. Dave hasn't worked since he had a serious accident on the assembly line at the soft drinks factory.
Has he?
Very good, has he?
Ay,
According to statistics, humans now sleep on average about 2 hours less every night than they a century ago.
according to statistics, how now sleep less every night. Um, should have? No. Used to?
Used to, okay, let's see, and they used to, good. All that there were many politicians that were honest and decent, there were just as who were not.
As many?
As many, let's see. The president of the United States is concerned about the difficulties of communicating the risk of using the heavily polluted flood water to people who may
Who make
borrow
I
water.
come across? No. Run out. Run out of. Ay, es que eso suena.
So
País al
let's see.
revés.
Good. Although there are brilliant students in the state, only a few will choose to remain in the state after graduation.
are are much.
Much students is plural. Okay, the time went over. Okay. Okay, man, don't worry. Let's continue. Okay, very good. Okay. The time is very short. Okay. So here it says, choose the appropriate options to complete the sentences. Sally made me my shoes before I went into her house.
Take
She
off.
said she wanted, very good, take off. And number two, will you read? I see.
I see that you have no time to clean the house on your own, so you had better get somebody done it it for you.
Okay, let's see. Very good. Let's see. Okay, good. What you should do before an emergency occurs is to get your fire alarm. That will also make you feel safer.
To fix
Okay, let's see. Good. Question number 4.
She had to have her phone number because she was receiving absent calls from a stranger. Changed. I see sweet. I was.
Change. This one?
No. To change.
Changed. Okay. Her dress was too long, so she had it
Short. Number
short,
2.
shortened. Very good, shortened. Very good, William. You'd better have a plumber the leak in the bathroom.
Repair.
This one, okay? The first, okay? Repair,
Yeah,
okay?
repair.
Instead of buying a new pair of shoes, I had my old ones.
I had my old ones repaired.
Very good, repaired, okay? I got everyone in the family Mary's birthday card before I sent it to her.
Sing? No, to sing.
To sign, okay? To sign. Very good. I didn't have any time, so I had my sister my paper last night.
Type.
Very good type, very good. The teacher got the students the first quatrain of the poem to make it easy to memorize.
To write.
Got students to write, very good. Regular repetition makes one new words easily.
Learn.
Learn, okay. Okay, so let's see, very good. Exactly, so let's see which one. Ah, but,
Creo que
but
es. Ah,
it
9 de
didn't,
hoy.
exactly. Let's see. Ah, here, okay.
Ah,
I
espera
see
aquí.
that you have no time to clean the house on your own, so you had better get somebody to to do
Do.
it for you,
Ah, sí.
okay? Because get somebody to do it for you, okay? It says what you should do before an emergency occurs is to get your fire alarm
To
uh,
fix.
fixed. Es mandar a arreglar tu alarma de incendios. By the way, 9 of 11 is good. Okay, excellent, very good. Okay, excellent, very good. Okay, so here, okay. This meeting is also a practice of grammar, okay, for the TOEFL, okay. For example, I will do number 1, okay. It says choose the correct answer. Only one answer is correct, okay. For example, number 1, look at this. Number 1, and here you have the options for number 1. Number 2, and you have here the options, okay, for number 2. Number 3, and you have the options for number 3, okay. For example, my wife and I went to the airport to meet some friends. Their plane landed, but they weren't on it. He says, if there is a message, aquí se les fue. Tiene que decir message, no massage. A message for us, okay? My wife said. Here is no, number, here
Let's see.
is,
Hey,
exactly.
let's
So here
see.
is, let's see, very good. Let's see, okay, if there is a message for us, okay? My wife said. They playing. Este yo te digo, mira, they, te digo yo, may have missed the plane. Ellos pudieron haber perdido el vuelo, ¿ok? Or
They
perhaps they from coming for some reason. Or
have
perhaps they,
have been have been
dígame,
good.
have been
Prevent.
prevented, ¿ok? Exactamente, have been prevented, ¿ok? Aquí mira, vas a ver. Aquí vas a ver, espera. Aquí hay una opción para que tú también puedas usar el marcador, vas a ver. Here, okay. Let me see, okay. Okay. ¿Puedes tú, mira, usar el marcador ya? No.
No, a mí no me aparece.
¿No te deja la opción?
En el...
En el documento.
Ah, no, no tengo el documento. No tengo el documento.
Okay. For example. Te pones opciones.
Y no.
¿No? Mira, a ver, en teoría dice cualquier usuario puede editar.
Ah, ya me apareció.
¿Ya te apareció?
Ya,
Ok.
ya me apareció.
Ok,
Pero no lo puedo mover.
no lo puedes ver, ok. Espera, yo lo muevo, ok.
After.
Let me see. Oh, no me deja. Espera. No me deja moverlo. Okay. Oh, sí, no me deja.
After. Ya sí, creo que ya sé cómo.
Oh, it's true. I can move the. Why
No.
not?
Pero la cuarta es asking for.
After asking for information. Very
At
good.
mission, just with you success ahead of día. Mm, mm, have you, sería con have you yet got the letter?
It says, after asking for information at the information desk, with also says, I have no idea. It says the letter.
Sería have you got?
It says, I asked my wife.
Sí, no,
Have you yet got? Exactly, yes. Have you yet got the letter? Good. Exactly.
Okay. Here you are, she said, we are
It says, here you are. She said, we
um,
at 10 o'clock.
will sería will be arrived.
Como ya es un plan seguro, we are arriving. We are arriving es algo que ya está seguro, ok. And, y aquí no me deja mover. Espera, voy a hacer un cambio, espera. Let me see. Ok. Oh, no, no puedo. No me deja. Ok.
Ay, creo que se tiene que ir a la página como tal, no aquí en el pizarrón.
Así, sí. Espera. Period. Okay, so let's see number 5. Okay. Okay, number 6. Espera. Borró lo que habíamos escrito. Espera, ok. Ahí está, ok. 7, ok. Okay, and te lo voy a compartir nuevamente, pero esa vez, déjame. Borró lo anterior, ok, pero no importa, ok. First, here, okay, it says, here you are, she said, it says number 6, okay, it says, we are arriving at 10 o'clock on the 7th, and
Want you to wait?
we want you to wait. Exactly, very good, okay. It says, but today is the 6th, I said. We should have looked at the date before. If we had, we wouldn't have had this journey for nothing. How silly, my wife said. I this letter for days without looking at it.
Mm,
I
I I am carrying.
this letter around for days. ¿Cómo diría? He estado cargando.
Have been carrying.
Have been carrying. Very good. Have been carrying. Very good. Okay. Okay, well, here number 9. I have often at hotel.
I have often at
At
hotel.
hotel.
State. Letter C.
Very good. Stayed at hotel. Good. Number 3. I didn't know what do, but
Do
then an idea suddenly to me.
I didn't know what but then an
An
idea
idea suddenly
happened to me
happened to me. Very good. Okay, good. When they arrived at the crossroad, he went the wrong.
when they arrived at the crossroad. He went the wrong way.
Very good. The wrong way. Very good. Your work has been, so we are going to give you a rise in salary.
Your work has been so around the rise in salary. Viable.
Available, disponible.
Entonces sería well o regular.
Well, okay, has been well, okay. What is it? Mira, a rise in salary. What is that mean? How do you say that in Spanish? A rise in salary.
Me suena como a salario, pero no sé qué más.
Ok, ponle por ahí, mira, todo junto. A rise in salary, un incremento salarial. A rise in salary, un incremento salarial.
Ok.
Ok. Number 3, mira, that is the best horse in the.
I used to in with one nose.
Very good.
That's the best horse in the career or race.
A career is for professional career.
Entonces es race.
Race, exactly. Very good. In the race. Very good. The weather says it will rain tomorrow.
The weather forecast. Forecast.
Forecast.
For,
Forecast. Good, man. Good. There are a lot of mistakes in this exercise. I'll have to eat again
for,
with you.
no.
Oh, not exactly. Repass. Repass is to study something, okay? To learn something for exam, okay?
Podría ser go over.
Go over it. Very good. Very good. Go over it again with you. Very good. If there are no buses, we'll have to take a taxi. We must get there.
If there are no buses, we'll have to take a taxi. We must get there any way or other.
Sí, así, mira. Mira, yo tengo, mira. One way or another. Este, mira, cópiala. One way or another es de una forma o de otra. Todo junto. One way or another. De una forma o de otra.
One way.
One, on one way or another. De una
Una
forma o de
u
otra.
Okay.
Bueno, número 17, mira. I read, the more I understand. Ah, esto lo vimos ayer, mira, ¿te acuerdas? Esto lo vimos ayer. I read, the more I understand.
How much?
No, mira.
So
Y ese
much.
de, we study this man called double comparative. Recuerda, mira,
The
mientras
more,
más,
the more,
exactly.
the more, the more.
The more I read, very good. The more I understand, very good. Look at that, it says, he does his work. I don't mind what time he arrives at the office.
Meanwhile,
Meanwhile, very good, good. Number 19, entering the hall, he found everyone waiting for him.
on
While entering,
while
mientras entra a la sala, very good, he found everyone waiting for him, very good. Each year's a picture.
it's yours
Each year's a picture.
means I painted a picture. No, I got a painted leather.
Oh, casi, eso, each year's that I don't paint. Hace años que yo no pinto una. Si quieren, miren, copia esta, mira, esta. Esta frase es bien común. It's years that. Ahí está. It's years that, ¿ok? Hace años que. Y puede ser lo que sea, for example. It's years that I don't eat a hamburger. It's years that I don't go to the cinema. ¿Ok? Very good, miren, ¿ok? Question number 21. I found this, the first question.
I found the first question to be easy.
Mm, más sencillo.
Easy.
I found the first question easy. Very good. An empty seat at the back of the bus.
She no sí no mm. Letter A. She happened to fit.
To find. Very good. She happened to find. Mira, how do you say that in Spanish? Mira, she happened to find. How do you translate that sentence in Spanish?
I don't know. She happened.
Okay, all together. Bien. She happened to find. Eso es de casualidad. Ella encontró. She happened to find. De casualidad, ella encontró. Very good. Tú también puedes decir, por ejemplo, puedes decir así, mira, por ejemplo. I happened to find, okay, a nice ring. Okay, I happened to find a nice ring. De casualidad me encontré un anillo bonito. Very good. Okay, man, look at the next, okay? It was raining. What a
That
pity.
no. Which?
Which, exactamente, está lloviendo, lo cual, ¿qué será? Miren este, miren, a pity, miren, o a pity. ¿Qué será? Miren, a pity o a pity.
I don't know.
Estaba, miren, a pity, una lástima. Una lástima.
Ya no saldremos.
Very good. Exactly. Your car is mine.
Your car similar to mine.
Very good. Your car is similar to mine. Very good, miren. I'm going away for a...
I'm going away for a week's holiday.
This one, okay, let it be. Very good. Week holiday. Very good. Excellent, miren. Why? It's not very important.
Why you are worried?
No, mira, no.
Why worry?
Dígame, why you worry? Why you worry? Es porque tú te preocupas, ¿ok? Is not very important, ¿ok? Esta, miren, la C, estoy de acuerdo que dijera, why are you worried? Why are you worried? ¿Ok? Pero otra forma de preguntar con contracción es así, why you worry, ¿ok? Question number 27. I don't like at me.
I don't
I
like.
don't like at me.
I don't like their salt.
They shout. Este bien. I
They,
don't like them shouting at me. No me gusta que ellos me griten a mí. Very good. One number 28, mira. It often snows.
If often snows. Ay, ay, ese es mi martirio.
That is very easy, okay?
Ay, no. On January?
In January, Miriam. In January. Remember. Para decir solamente el mes, tú puedes decir in April, in May. ¿Ok? Pero si dices, miren, el mes y la fecha, tú tienes que decir on. Así que ahí, vas a ver. Ah, no me deja. Vamos a ver aquí abajo. On April 5. On May 7. Ahí está, miren.
Es que luego me los cambian.
Mira, si únicamente dices, no se ve. Si únicamente dices el mes, no. Wait a minute. Okay. Si únicamente dices el mes, es in April, in May. Si dices el mes y la fecha, on April 5, on May 7. Si mira eso, copia en tu OneNote, please.
Es que
Solamente
ya
el
los...
mes, usamos
Es que
in.
había unos ejercicios que me había dejado también del in, on y eso.
Very good.
Y había uno que decía my birthday.
Good.
Y le puse in October y me marcaba mal. Me decía que era con on. Entonces me confundo.
Ok. No. Es la regla. In April, in May,
Okay.
on April 5, on May 7. Okay, good. Question number 29. I'll meet you again the weekend.
I'll meet you again at the weekend.
Exacto. Todo depende de qué, mira. También puedes terminar on the weekend, ¿ok? ¿De qué depende? At the weekend es más inglés británico. On the weekend es inglés americano. Ok.
Okay.
Si quieres ponle por ahí, miren. At the weekend igual a inglés británico. On the weekend, American English, ¿ok?
On the week.
On the weekend equal
On the
American English.
at the weekend.
At the weekend is British English, ¿ok?
Okay.
Okay. Number 30, miren. Is the first turning the left after the traffic lights? Está bien fácil, miren. Is the first turning the left? Okay. After the traffic lights.
In the left.
Casi. Miren. On the left. Okay. Siempre casi, miren. Siempre casi. On the left. On the
right.
right. Okay.
I am crying.
También puede ser, mira, también puede ser on your left. Okay.
On your left. On your
Exactly.
right.
On your right. Exactamente. Ahí, mira, si quieres, también ponlos en tu cuadernito. Very good. Okay, there. Ahí está. Siempre así. On the left, on your left. On the right, on your right. Very good. Question number 31. He wasn't to leave the case.
He wasn't so strong.
Si usamos so strong, tendría que decir, por ejemplo, he wasn't so strong that he couldn't leave the case.
Enough strong.
Casi. He wasn't
Strong enough.
strong enough. Exactamente. He wasn't strong enough. ¿Qué es, mira, lift?
Era vela, ¿no? Algo así. Luz.
No. Mira,
No.
la que tú dices, mira, que esta, mira, lit.
Entonces no sé.
Lit, mira, es encender. Justamente encender una vela, encender un cigarrillo. Lit. Pero este, mira, lift, ese es levantar. Levantar, ok. Esta, mira, case.
Caso.
Caso, no. Portafolio. Portafolio. No. El
Es que
portafolio, ok.
yo lo pongo como caso o causa.
Exactamente. Causa sí, pero aquí no es causa, ¿no? Ok. Que el portafolio, ok.
Ese
Calma,
ni se
mira.
ocupa como decir para el caso de estudio.
Exactamente.
Indicate.
Exactamente, ese study case, ok. Pero aquí no, ok, ok. Es portafolio, ok. Ok. A ver, tú. He can climb trees, a monkey.
Like.
Very good. Good, mira, like a monkey. Good. He lives in the house where he was born.
He every.
Every
No.
es cada. Every
Ye-
Monday, every
Still.
Saturday. Ah,
He still lives. No.
exactly. He still lives, que es
Ay,
aún,
no me acuerdo.
todavía. Aún todavía. He still lives. Él aún vive en la casa donde él nació. Very good. He still lives. Very good. Comment 34. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, so he's still. Ah, es fácil, mira.
At the bed. In the bed.
Es, mira. In bed.
In bed.
Esa es la única correcta. Luego las otras son invenciones. Ninguna de las otras existe. Si quieres poner, mira, in bed.
In
Okay.
cama.
En cama. Very good.
Okay.
He was a good swimmer, so he swam to the riverbank when the boat sank.
So he could.
Very good. So,
Mm,
cool,
could.
exactly, yes. So he could swim to the riverbank. ¿Qué es esto, miren? Riverbank.
Ay, me suena como río de banco.
Ajá, como el banco del río. ¿Qué es eso, no? Riverbank, miren. La orilla del río. Riverbank. La orilla del río.
Ay, porque todo significan muchas cosas.
Yes, yes, bien. That is true. Exactly, that is true. Exactly. That is true, okay. Oye, mira, she has been very kind.
Ay, isn't he? No, ese sería hasn't she?
Exactly. Hasn't she? Very good.
For some tag questions.
Very good. He was left alone with to look after him.
Eh, anyone with oh no, someone.
With someone to look after him. Dice, él fue abandonado sin nadie que lo cuide.
No one
Very
or
good. No,
anyone. No one.
eso mira, no one, ok. No one, very good. ¿Por qué no, anyway, mira, porque antes tenía que haber una negación,
Ajá.
pero pues tu Wii tocaba negativo, ok. Fíjate, mira, I pulled the handle, I could. Ah, eso es fácil, mira. Dice,
Handle
jalé la manija, luego espacio, yo pude.
as hard as no.
Exactly,
So
yes.
as hard
No,
as.
yes, mira, as hard as I could, very good. Have you got much? I've left my at home.
Ay, cigarette
Ah,
light.
es very good. Cigarette lighter, very good. Exactly, Miriam, very good. ¿Qué es esto, Miriam, de match? ¿Qué es esto
Ay,
de
no
match, Miriam?
sé.
Have you got match?
La conozco como hicimos matching nada más.
Match, ok. Ese es un significado. Otro significado, Miriam, es cerillo. Cerillo.
Ay, brillo.
Very good, Miriam. ¿Cuál es la canción? That is the dog.
That that's the dog
That's the dog. Mhm.
we've been talking care for. No, we've been looking
Mm,
after.
very good. We've been looking after. Que ese es el perro que hemos estado cuidando. Very good. I made him what I had told him.
I
Este es
made
fácil, mira.
I
I
made
made.
Repeat.
Excellent. I make you repeat. Very good, very good. I was tired that I had to rest.
I was so tired.
Very good, Miguel. Very good. Very good, Miguel. Fíjate, mira, aquí, fíjate. Fíjate que vamos a ponerlo aquí. Si ese enunciado hubiese dicho, por ejemplo, así, mira. I was too tired, okay, okay, to work. Fíjate la diferencia, ¿eh? I was too tired. Si hubiera tenido la expresión too tired, okay, hay que completarlo con
To
preposición
work.
to y el verbo. Pero como aquí tiene so, ok, fíjate, tiene so, se completa con that. Ok,
Sí, eso
ahí
sí lo
viene.
es.
Very good, mira, very good, ok.
Para decir, como estoy tan aburrida que. Y el
Exactamente,
otro
bueno, estoy
tan aburrido.
demasiado aburrido, demasiado cansado, ok. Estaba demasiado cansado para trabajar, ok.
Sí soy.
Ok, come on, mira. Ok, mira. He live in the country than in the city.
He prefers
Very good. He prefers, good, very good. Okay, ma'am. His sister.
he reminds me of
Very good. He reminds me of his sister. Very good. Put your on raincoat. It rains.
in case no.
Exactly. In case it rains. Exactly. Excellent. Put on your raincoat in case it rains. Very good. Excellent, Miriam. Very good. Okay, so let's see one more activity. Excellent, Miriam. Very good. Very good. So not very difficult for you. Okay.
Ay,
Excellent, Miriam. Very good.
nomás
Very good,
eliminen.
Miriam. Very good. Okay, look at this. Uh, okay. Each meaning. One. Excellent. Vamos a ver algunas palabras que tienen múltiples significados, ¿ok?
Ay,
Por ejemplo, espera.
my favorite.
Y lo voy a poner. ¿Dónde está el documento? Ok, here. Espera, ¿dónde está el documento de Word? Very good. Here. Very good. Excellent. Very good. Okay. There, okay.
Ay,
Okay. Okay.
teacher, ¿por qué no Kenia y Carlos se conectan jueves y viernes?
Because they only take classes from Monday to Wednesday.
Mm.
Exactly, yes. And I think that Kenya works later on Thursdays.
Oh,
Mhm. Okay, so then on the Word file that I share with you, okay, there you will find many, well, some words, okay, that have several meanings. For example, I will read the first. Bank, meaning one. Financial institution where people deposit or withdraw money. Example, I need to go to the bank to deposit my paycheck. Meaning two. Side of a river or slope. Example, we had a picnic by the river bank. Okay. Obviamente, miren, el primer significado, aquí voy a poner banco, ¿no? Banco. Okay. The second meaning, what is it? No me deja. Hace. Okay. And the second meaning is obviously orilla. Okay, la orilla de un río. Okay. Okay, bueno, miren, but, could you please, please, meaning one.
in one, nocturnal flying mammal
Good.
examples, bats are now for their ability to use echolocation.
Echolocation. Meaning to meaning, please.
Meaning to piece or supporting equipment used in baseball or cricket. Example, he swung the bat and hit on the home run.
Very good. What I mean the first meaning? Could you please write me them here the first meaning?
Ay, no sé, ese sí no lo
Dice
entendí.
nocturnal flying animal.
Mammal. Ay, no, no sé.
Exactly.
What is mammal?
Ah, mamífero. Mamífero.
Entonces es un animal.
Exacto, miren. Si te deja escribir, no.
Ah,
A ver,
creo que es.
vamos a ver. A ver,
Entonces,
ese, mira. Murciélago.
ah,
Murciélago.
animal.
Murciélago. Exacto. And the second meaning, miren.
Pues un bat.
Un bat, exactamente. Very good.
Ay, ay, ¿qué hice? Ay, ay. Ya.
Very good, okay. Good, miren. Okay, me voy a poner. Could you please read for run, meaning one?
Run move swiftly on foot. Example, I need to run to catch the bus.
Very
Correr.
good. Okay.
And
Para,
operating a machine or system, she knows how to the run coffee maker. Ay, ese sí
exacto.
no sé.
How to run the coffee maker, okay. Ese, mira. El segundo significado, miren, es operar. Operar.
Operar.
Operar, ok. También puede ser maniobrar. Maniobrar.
Ay,
Operar, maniobrar.
ok.
Ok. Muy bien. We please read the next.
Crane.
Crane.
Meaning one. Tall, waving beard, a bit along neck and legs. Examples: the crane gracefully stowed by the water's edge.
Very good.
Edge.
Okay. And what
And
about the
meaning
next? Machine.
machine used for lifting and moving heavy objects. Examples: the construction crew used a crane to lift the steel beams.
Very good. Y miren, tall waiting beard. ¿Qué será eso, miren? ¿Qué será crane, miren, en español?
Un pájaro alto.
Ajá, exacto. Ese, miren, grulla. Grulla. Okay.
Uh,
Grulla, crane. Y el segundo, miren, dice machine used for lifting and moving heavy objects. Dice, mira, the construction crew use a crane to lift the steel beams.
máquina
Okay,
para mover objetos.
exactamente.
Una
Ese.
grúa.
Very good, miren. Grúa. Very good.
Una grulla, grúa.
Excellent, miren. Very good, miren. Book, miren. I will meaning one. Written or printed literary work. Example, I enjoy reading a good book before bedtime.
Un libro.
Very good. Meaning two, to reserve or schedule something. Example, I'll book a table at the restaurant for Friday night.
Un libro de reservas.
Ese, mira, ahí es un verbo, es reservar. Reservar. Very good. Muy bien, number two, read fair, meaning one. Just
Just an impartial, treating people equally. Examples: they used
the
ensure a
judge, the
fair,
judge, the judge, the
the
judge.
judge ensure a fair trial for all parties.
Very good.
Meaning two, event or exhibition for entertainment or trade. Example: we had fun at the country fair playing games and eating cotton candy.
Very good. ¿Qué tal miren por primero? ¿Qué será, miren? Dice just and impartial.
Una persona justa e imparcial. Un juez.
Ah, bueno, fair, miren. El primer significado, miren, es justo, justo,
Justo.
justo. Por ejemplo, tú puedes decir,
I
tú
am
puedes decir,
fair.
por ejemplo, Miriam is a fair person. Miriam es una persona justa. Okay.
I am
The second
fair.
meaning is an event or exhibition for entertainment or trade.
Un evento.
Un evento, casi, casi. Puntualmente, miren, es feria. Feria.
Oh.
Okay. La feria es donde vienen las máquinas, ¿no? Donde venden comida, esa es feria, ¿ok? Pues miren, tire, I will number one. Meaning one, rubber covering on a wheel. Example, I need to replace the worn out tire on my car. Meaning two, feel exhausted or fatigued. Example, after running a marathon, I felt extremely tired. ¿Qué es el primero, Miriam?
No sé.
Dice rubber covering on a wheel. Ese, miren, es llanta, neumático.
Llanta.
Llanta,
Allanata.
neumático. Llanata.
Allanata.
Llanta. Neumático. Y el segundo, miren, ese ya lo sabes, miren, ¿qué es? El segundo ya
Estar
lo sabes.
exhausto.
Está cansado, ¿no? Cansado.
Cansadito.
Okay.
Ay, ya le iba a poner cansadito. Cansado.
Cansado. Very good.
Oh,
Watch.
yes. Teacher, I have a question.
Yes.
In the English, it no have it diminutives, diminutivos.
Ah, no, not as in Spanish, but only you can say, for example, little or poor, for example, poor. For example, you can say, for example, I have a friend called Little Maria. Okay. Tengo una amiga llamada
Yeah.
María Pequeña. Como tal, mira, si es así, por ejemplo, por decir Marietita, por ejemplo, no sé. O por decir Miguelito, no. Ok, quizás Little. O Poor, pero Poor más, es más sentido de lástima. Por ejemplo, tú puedes decir, mira, I have a friend um, named, okay, Poor Miguel. Okay, Poor Miguel. Okay.
Pobre Miguel.
Exacto, pobre Miguel, ajá. Pero es más que nada, ¿cómo decir? Miren, es un sentido figurativo, no un sentido real, ¿sí? Por ejemplo, como te explico, ¿no? Por ejemplo, Marietita, Miguelito, Carlitos, no. Not in
Ay,
English, okay?
mal.
Sorry? What?
Cae mal.
Exactly. Very good. Okay. Okay, mira. So, repeat, mira, meaning one, time keeping.
Type keeping device run on the beach breast. Example, he glanced at
Good.
his watch to check the time.
Meaning two.
Meaning to observe or monitor something or someone. Example, we watch the stars in the night sky with a
With aug, 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 okay.
owl.
So, mira, what are the film? Mira, timekeeping device, que es watch, miren, en el primer significado.
Reloj.
Ajá, reloj, very good. Exactly, miren, very good. ¿Qué es esto? Mira, a glance at. Glance at. ¿Qué es eso, mira?
Don't
Glance at.
know.
Ah, pone por ahí, miren, OneNote, please. Glance at. Mirar con detalle a. Glance at. Mirar con detalle a.
And off.
Aug, aug.
Oh,
Con asombro. Oh, oh, asombro. Admiración.
admiración y respeto.
Ujú.
Hay como una palabra tan chiquita puede significar tanto. La
Exacto.
quisiera ver.
Ver, exactly, Miriam. Very good. So, mira, as you can see, there are many, many words that have several meanings. Okay, Miriam. But during the classes, we will also be checking this phrase. Okay. Miriam, esta liguita, llévatela a OneNote. Okay. Sí, fíjate, voy a quitar la primera parte. Fíjate. Voy a
Ay,
quitar
ya
la
lo
primera.
copié todo.
Ya lo copiaste. Ok. Te digo, si quieres esa liga, llévatela al OneNote. Y
Ok.
aquí le voy a poner este título. Multiple multiple meaning words para que las tengas. Aquí vamos a seguir colocando más de ellas. Okay, ¿dónde está el ribbon? Ahí está. Very good. Multiple meaning words, ¿ok? Y aquí tenemos algunos. Very good. Excellent, miren. There, okay. So, miren, tell me, miren, what are you going to have for dinner tonight, miren?
Oh, I bought the
I bought. Very good.
the I how do you say noises? Noise.
Nuts.
Nut spread. I love nut spread.
Not bread, really, Miriam?
Yeah, I like it.
Delicious. Mira, and how are you going to eat it? With coffee, with milkshake,
Yeah,
with
coffee.
hot chocolate?
No, coffee.
Coffee. Very good, Miriam. Excellent, Miriam. Okay. Is is it from a bakery or is it from Bimbo brand?
No, bakery.
For a bakery. I mean, and where did you buy it?
I don't know. In my store, near store.
Good.
No, how do you say tienda?
Store.
Sí, pues, store.
Tienda store, yes.
The the bread and the some bread, the bakery. I don't know the bakery, but today
Right.
they have the nuts bread, and I
Not
love
bread.
nut bread.
Just mean, I agree with you. It's really, really delicious, okay? I agree with
Mm.
you, okay? Excellent, Miriam. Okay, Miriam, so far, Miriam, any question, Miriam, any problems about the topics that we were checking today?
Now, teacher.
Homework, Miriam, is to study and memorize multiple meaning words, okay?
Okay.
Why? Because as you could see, Miriam, TOEFL examination uses those words, okay? So we will also continue learning them, okay? So thank you very much, Miriam, for being today. Have a great night, Miriam. Sleep tight.
Hi. Yeah.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you. Take care. Thank you very much. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you. Night, night. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.